With the recording.
Recording in progress.
All right, I'd like to welcome you and call to order the January 24th Port Orchard City Council regular meeting. I'd like to also remind us of our guiding principles, which are we raising the bar? Are we honoring the past but not living in the past? Are we building connections with outside partners? And is the decision-making process positively impacting diversity, equity, and inclusion? Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have a published agenda. Are there any proposed amendments to this evening's agenda?
Mayor, I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Cacciardi, a second by Councilmember Lucarelli to approve the agenda as presented. Any comments on the agenda? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the agenda has been set for tonight. We are to our first citizen comment period, which is for any items on this evening's agenda. There's a second citizen comment period at the end of the meeting for all topics. So is anyone wishing to address the council for anything that's on this evening's agenda? Okay, all right. Okay. Step to the microphone and identify yourself.
Hi, my name's Amy Durgan. I'm here tonight just with some concerns in general about, first of all, a lot of excitement and enthusiasm for all the new apartment complexes that are coming in. I think it's great that we're providing housing. I think it's a need. But I do have a lot of concerns about the rates on these apartment buildings that are coming in. I don't think that we're doing enough, or maybe I'm here to ask if we're doing enough to be providing affordable homes for people, just workaday people, because I'm looking at the things that are coming up for rent, and like I'm so fortunate where I'm at right now, but I know there's a lot of people in the community that are really, really struggling, and these rents are very, very high, and I don't know what we can do as a city, but I'm here to definitely express that and explore kind of some of the things that are going on. So that's what I have.
Thank you for your comments. And did you identify yourself for the record?
I did. I said Amy Durgan.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Missed it.
Hi everyone, my name is Danielle Rimbert. Some of you guys already know me. I've lived in the area for about 25 years. I am a local business owner and citizen, but I started out working for small businesses in this area. I'm also here to discuss some of the current tax exemptions that are being considered for development that's happening in the area. Being a single mother and a small business, I'm very aware of like the cost and the implications that some of these price hikes and the problems that come with that are involved. I did a little digging before I came here, and I just wanted to bring to your attention, if you didn't know, that the median income for Port Orchard citizens is about $48,000. So that means that about half of our citizens are making $20 an hour. Which are the people that are making your coffee in the morning on the way to the work, working as store clerks, cleaning your houses, just really the working force behind our community. And so the average income of those people affects what we're able to get. And the apartments that are being built, the average single apartment now is about $1,600 a month. And even to qualify for something of that price for a one-bedroom apartment, you need to make about 3 times that. And so at an average income of $48,000, you need to work 60 hours or more just to qualify to be able to afford that. And so we're not taking into consideration, other factors like single mothers, families with, people with disabilities, elderly, and other factors that come into play with that. And so I would like for your consideration to just think about the kind of exemptions and things that you're making and like the kind of rules that you're setting for developers when they're coming in and providing affordable housing for our community, because, you know, we run into the other problems of why are we seeing so much houselessness? Why are we seeing, you know, these problems developing? And, you know, we need the people that are making $48,000 and less to be able to run our community. And some of those people are starting out, and even the average one-bedroom, like just renting a studio or renting a room in someone's house is about $900 a month. And so even for our kids that are just starting out, minimum wage is $15 an hour. And so they're having to work, you know, multiple hours, multiple jobs, trying to go to school, having to live with strangers or partner with friends to just start out, and that's like causing another struggle for us in our community. So just a little perspective to add to that, and I hope that helps with any decision making you make in the future. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Others wishing to address the council, go ahead.
Greetings, everyone. My name's Kopano Kokai at 228 Sydney. I'm a transplant to the area. When I made the decision to come to the Great Northwest from Los Angeles, it was primarily from escaping burnout. I worked in nonprofits all of my adult life, you know, working on HIV/AIDS prevention, you know, other health issues. In the latter part, working in LA, was working on youth homelessness. And while there were the organization I was with and other organizations did a great job of providing opportunities for young people to get off of the street, there was very little resources to move them on. And unfortunately, especially for the more high-functioning, independent youth that could have excelled with more support. So, you know, out of that frustration, had an opportunity to just kind of, you know, work in art and music. You know, I had a couple of road trips in Seattle, met some great friends, decided to relocate to that area. You know, while there, was sharing a house with 4 other people, one of them my former partner. It was a rotating cast of, you know, different people that had kind of maintained this house over the years. At a certain point, you know, my partner and I, and rented out the upstairs to a young new married couple. And as from a bad flood, it became pretty obvious pretty fast that the management company didn't want to make the repairs so that they can kind of clear it out, you know, do renovations and raise the rent. Just so happened that my former partner had a project for us, working on a boat in Port Orchard. Someone wanted to sell their boat. We lived on the boat, spiffied it up for a little bit, and just kind of thought, you know, well, what do we want to do now? And saw a rent sign in the apartment that I've been in since October of 2012. And because we had our own business, we were, you know, doing cleaning and organizing. We had retail space at what used to be Kate's Bargain Bin on Bay Street for a while. And we were able to integrate into the community, meet people, and, you know, kind of feel established and kind of, you know, become part of the community. And when I was ready to go back into my field, my first choice was to be able to work here in my new hometown. You know, I interviewed with great organizations, but just unfortunately was unable to just get a right fit. And so then I had to make the decision to look for a job in Seattle, where I currently work with a homeless organization that provides public individual supportive housing. And being back in the field and working in that situation, I tend to see...
Sir, your 3 minutes is up. You need to wrap up.
Okay. Well, I'm just tend to see the same situation, that oftentimes that there aren't really resources for people that that actually could have an opportunity to improve their situation, but there just aren't resources for people that are kind of in that medium income that need a little extra help. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else wishing to address the council? And I know this isn't the norm, but there's this theme here to housing, and it's relevant to a meeting I just recently attended in the governor's office. And there is a housing crisis, and there's a number of bills this session. And matter of fact, I'm going to testify against one of them because tomorrow that has to do with just some in the legislature feel zoning is the solution, and all we've got to do is take all of our single-family lots and make them eligible to have fourplexes and sixplexes on them. But the private sector isn't going to build subsidized housing. So zoning is a piece of the problem, regulations are a piece of the problem, there's an affordability problem, and while the governor's proposal, there's 22,000, we're currently today 22,000 housing units short in our state. That's the current need. And the private sector for subsidized housing. And the private sector isn't going to build that. It's going to be our housing authorities and it's nonprofits, and there needs to be funding for that. And the governor's proposal of $4 billion is very ambitious. Even $1 billion, it's going the right direction. And even if the legislature approved $1 billion, that's 4 times what's happening today. So there is a serious problem, and it's happening in our community and in every community in our state. And I think we do recognize that, but it takes resources, and there are resources beyond what our city has available to us. And so we need to, my opinion, get behind some of these proposals that are being proposed in Olympia. Some of them are bad, and I'm going to, like I said, testify against the zoning bill tomorrow that the Senate is proposing, because zoning isn't just upzoning things isn't going to solve this problem. It's only one piece of the equation, and so anyway, that's not. Thank you for indulging. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, while we're on this theme and addressing some of what we heard tonight, do you want to talk about the housing action plan for the 2024 comp plan update?
I'll let Nick. I mean, that's a body of work we're doing, and I'll let Nick just touch on that too.
Yeah, I can speak to that briefly. In the spring of 2022, we received a grant from the Department of Commerce to prepare a housing action plan. If you go to the city website right now and just type in the search bar housing action plan, you'll be taken to the homepage for the project. We have published an initial conditions report, and then we have been doing a survey for community members. In the last 2 utility bills, we sent out a QR code that you could scan and then take this survey and provide input on what housing needs look like in Port Orchard. We are just starting to write the final report, and that housing action plan survey is open for about another week and a half. But we'll be publishing that report probably in April. It's going to include a whole host of recommendations for city council action, including some zoning changes, reforming the multifamily tax exemption code, and a handful of other recommendations that you'll see out of that report. So we'll be studying that as soon as the report is finished, and then taking action in the coming remainder of the year.
I guess in close, we hear you. We recognize there is a serious problem, but it's a very complex issue. It's not something that zoning alone or reforming regulations are going to solve all by itself. It's multifaceted. And Councilmember Clausen?
Yeah, and I would just point out, Danielle, for you and your other folks here, part of the action that's on the agenda tonight is to provide tax credits, and one of the reasons that we're doing the tax credit is for folks to provide affordable units in their projects. So there's specific rationale. One was, of course, to encourage more multifamily development, but the other was to also incentivize the development of subsidized housing or affordable units. So that's part of the action that we'll be taking tonight.
So, but I don't believe any of the projects on this list are providing subsidy, are they?
Two out of the 3
Two of them do?
exemptions include affordable
Okay, thank you. I
units.
stand corrected. And 20% of the units. That's the norm. All right, should we get on to our business? Right. So we're to our consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Seconded.
Motion by Councilmember Diener, a second by Councilmember Terneri to approve the consent agenda as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the consent agenda has been approved. We have a presentation from our finance director related to a low-income utility discount program. Mr. Crocker, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The screen is just pulling up here. So I just want to take us a step back and remind the council that we went through a water rate setting process this last year. And at the conclusion of that process, both the council and the mayor expressed a desire for the city to come forward with a low-income utility discount program to help mitigate the impact of the water utility rate changes. So that's what this program is focused on, to discuss what the staff are proposing to move forward with as far as a low-income utility discount program. Come on. And we'll freeze. So I'll briefly go while we're frozen here. So overall, the program, what are we proposing here? We're proposing that the city of Port Orchard offers reduced rates, reduced base rates for citizens with low income. The base rates would be for the water, sewer, and storm utility services under our Port Orchard Municipal Code. So although we discussed water specifically this last year in the rates, when staff did research on other municipalities, we felt it appropriate to apply this discount program to all our utilities. Sewer and storm are also included in this proposal. So a low-income individual will be a citizen whose total household income does not exceed 125% of the U.S. Census Department's poverty threshold, and that's the next table we'll go over. This individual would come to City Hall, make an appointment with staff, and furnish proper documentation, including salary, wages, interest, dividends, other reportable federal tax income, to receive eligibility for the program. We are not proposing to retain any of those documents. Rather, we'll have, again, by appointment only, have our utility clerk at the counter verify that they have proper documentation and they meet the eligible requirements, and they would then sign an affidavit that they have verified them for the program. The customer would take their documents back home with them. They would not leave anything with us. They would then be eligible for the program for a one-year cycle, and we would have to have them come back every year to review their application status. So before you is the federal poverty threshold table times 125%. So again, this is a federal index, a resource that we can every year pull down. And we are applying 125%, so we're increasing the income threshold by 25% of the federal limit. So when we look at this table, for example, we see a single person under the age of 65 would have an income level of $17,621. Anything below that, they are eligible for the program. Above that, they are not eligible for the program. And so we have a whole table here displaying the different levels of eligibility based on number of people in the household and whether there are any of these people that are under the age of 18. So if there's children, there's our additional considerations in the table itself. So the first part of that is identifying who is eligible for the program and what the city staff would go through to obtain and certify documentation. Part of it's going to be income. The other part is we are also proposing that this be available to all citizens of Port Orchard. And again, they'll have to demonstrate that with their documentation. Part of that would be owners as well as tenants. And under a tenant coming to City Hall, they would have to demonstrate and provide the lease agreement they have with the owner of their housing unit to substantiate that they are the tenant of this building and that they are the one applying for the low-income discount program. The discount we discussed in the fall was a 25% discount off their water utilities. So before you have laid out a table that we would identify the base rate for each of our utilities, our water, sewer, storm. So we'll just look at the water, for example, first. The current base rate is $53.50. With a 25% reduction, the base is reduced by $13.38, leaving a new low-income base rate of $40.13. So you can see the new income low base rate across each of the utility tiers for a total new amount of base rates at $183.38. Now again, this program is focused on the base rate only, so customers are going to continue to pay for the consumption of water based on the water tiers. So lastly, I wanted to put forward an example just to give you kind conceptualize of the annual impact to the city. The annual impact to a single user would be roughly savings of $61.13. Excuse me, that'd be a billing cycle impact of $61.13 per billing cycle. Over the year, that's $366 of savings. The impact in this short example I have displayed here for 25 citizens would be an impact to the city of roughly $9,170 about of foregone base rate revenue. So with that, I'd just like to open up to the mayor for discussion or.
And this was, last week, the Finance Committee took a look at this and discussed it, but wanting some feedback from you guys. Open up for a discussion. Councilmember Cacciardi?
I sit on the Finance Committee meeting, or Finance Committee, so I heard the report the other day and had some time to reflect on it. And I think it's a great start, but I don't think it's meaningful enough. And I'm concerned that, you know, we're not going to have enough citizens apply for it. And so, you know, whether we lead with this and take a close look at it, but I think, you know, I think it's a step in the right direction, but I think there's more we could do. To me, you know, 25 citizens, if they applied, and it's a $9,000 cost to the city, I just think there's more that we can do, and then just kind of monitor that impact, and if we need to change rates, you know, again, in the future to kind of offset that. But I think there's more we can do on that front. I think it's a good start, but I would encourage us to maybe take a little bit of a deeper dive and just to see how we can get more people that are eligible, because I think the threshold for qualifying is really, really, really low, and I think there's other people that could benefit from this, and I would like to see us try to expand the reach of the program.
Okay. So you're looking to expand the reach, not necessarily the impact to.
And maybe it's tiered, right? And so maybe, you know, at the rates we have, it's a discount of X, but maybe there's even more people that we can benefit. Maybe it's a sliding scale, but I would just be interested to see if we can't, again, for the people making these annual wages, that, you know, the amount of money they're paying monthly it's significant. I mean, it's a significant amount of money, so it'd be interesting to just kind of play with that and see if we can. You got to start somewhere, right, and then monitor it and reevaluate and go at it again. But yeah, I think it's a great program. I'd just like to see it, you know, expand a little bit wider.
Councilmember Clausen?
Yeah, I totally agree with Sean. I think the discussion that we had at the Finance Committee, though, was that we take one step at a time and we monitor this frequently so that we can make course adjustments as we go forward with it. And I do think it's something that we can expand the eligibility. I would throw one little caveat out there that, you know, when you give away on one hand, you have to take it from the other. So whatever discounts you provide here, you're going to have to make up the other.
Yeah,
these
right.
are
Absolutely.
These are funds that have to be looked at in their standalone, and they have to break even. So
it's a great point. These are enterprise funds, and
right.
they're separate from our general fund. So, Councilmember Rosepepe?
No, it's just the last person on the Finance Committee, and what we've said is, you know, all concur with, but I think the consensus was we need to start someplace. And again, use your words, Sean, monitor it and then move forward. I'd like to see a sliding scale also, realizing that, as you said, John, that it's got to be a net sum of 0. But well, let's start, see where we go, and move from there.
The only way we can really know what the impact is to make it is to start it.
Absolutely.
And see how many people apply to the program. And then,
So I'm all in favor of
then we
starting.
can potentially tweak it. So, Councilmember Trineri, I saw your hand raised.
Yeah, and I'm not on the Finance Committee, but I'm curious as to how many citizens we think may be eligible for this program, number one. And number two, I agree with everything that's been said here so far. It's a good start. We've got a ways to go, and it is a balancing act, as Councilmember Clausen mentioned. But I would be curious to see just how many would be eligible, of our citizens would be eligible for this program.
Yeah, I would say the finance department doesn't have a position on that. We don't have any data on the income levels of our citizens. We don't carry that information, so that's why it's kind of like we're dipping our toe into starting to understand what the makeup looks like. I can share with you the number of citizens that are qualified under Paulsbo's program. They have about 25 citizens that are engaged in the low-income program over there. In Bremerton, they have 225. And Bremerton does have a higher threshold starting out. They have a higher, I think 40,000 is their threshold. And Paulsbo's, they take a different approach. They use this poverty index as well as a specific threshold for seniors. So I don't know if that helps at all, but as far as the citizen makeup here in Port Orchard, I have no comments on that.
Thank you.
Councilor Chang.
I completely agree with everything that's been said. I think this is a great start. I was impressed that the discount starts at 25%. I think that's a nice starting point, but I did wonder, is that enough? You know, maybe a third, maybe 40%. But I think the question that we can't answer, because we don't know, is the 125% going to catch enough people? You know, should maybe be 150% or higher. But I think we need to start it somewhere and maybe monitor it for 3 months, see who applies, if anyone. And thank you. I'm very impressed. I think
I
it's
don't
a
know
good
that
start.
3 months is going to give us enough data. It's probably coming back in a year.
Yeah.
And I think we wanted to kick this off after the tax season so that people have current documentation to bring us in, and then potentially evaluate it a year later so hey, now we know we've got only 10 people, or we got 100 and we planned for 25, you know, and
I mean,
then
the city doesn't get the 1040s of all residents.
do not, and nor would we want them because they would be public records. So, Councilmember Diener.
So I also agree with what I've heard tonight. I think 25% is going to be huge for some people. But what could we do to do more? And looking at that over the next several months, I think is a great idea. So I'm behind it.
I would just ask that we double down on the promotion of this program, right? Some of our lower income residents, they don't have the access to the internet and the emails and some of their promotions. So I think we need to work really hard to be able to drive this message because this is a new program, and how do we get it out there so people are aware that this is available?
Possibly in their utility bill. Councilmember Lucarelli, go
I
ahead.
think what we're going to have to do, though, is to see how many people do take advantage of this and what the cost is on the other end. So how much cost are we going to have the general public make up for that? You know, if it's a not too high of a number, I don't think that's a terrible impact when we're looking at about $10,000. But if it starts to climb up to the 500 range, whatever, then that has to be reevaluated, and we've got to see what those numbers look like. But I think this is a great idea of getting started with this.
Councilor Clausen, you had another comment?
Yeah, one other point of discussion that we had at the Finance Committee was the fact that a lot of the utility billing is done with the property owner and not with the tenants. So we're going to have to figure out that little nuance. How do we pass that savings on when the billing goes to the property owner and not to the tenant? So
I don't think we can.
there's a lot of complexity to something like this, but I think we're heading in the right direction.
It's a mixed bag. The utility bill is the property owner's responsibility, but some landlords allow for a second bill to go to their tenant and their tenant pays, but ultimately the property owner is responsible for it. So utility bills is one way for this outreach. We're going to have to, social media.
Well, as Noah mentioned, if you bring your lease document that shows that you're obligated to pay those utilities, maybe that's what we need, or something of that. But there's a lot of nuances to it that we're going to have to work forward with.
So is there what you're seeing here a good starting point to
Yes.
bring back, and then we'll revisit it at a future date and where we need to tweak it as we have data? Is that
Yes.
and Councilmember Diener? Yeah.
I just was curious about when we can kick this off while we then look at it and monitor it.
I think Noah could.
Yeah, I
Noah
think if
answer that.
council's supportive with kind of what's proposed here and doesn't ask any changes, we would start to work on the code language, and my goal would be to bring that before the council, the first meeting in February. Again, I think with staff's consideration, as Mayor talked about, an ideal starting point for the program is at about May 1st, because it does get through the tax season. We'll have fresh income data, so as you're kind of bringing people into the program, you have relevant current financial data. So I think that's a good benchmark to start. We'll want to do some promotion, so we want tri-HICL utility billing cycles programs coming. or started. So the sooner we can get this adopted, the better I can lay out when we would be fully active and ready to go. It also times well with the federal table does get updated in March. So I have 2021 numbers here. I would expect the table to increase for 2022. So again, that's all about the right timing. We'd see an increase in the low income thresholds.
Further comments? I think we'll see this back in February then. All right. We have no public hearings tonight, and we're to our business items. The first of which is adoption of a resolution approving a contract with Consor North America for the construction support and management services for the McCormick Village Splash Pad construction project. Mr. Lang, this is you.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. The City Public Works Department has identified a need for construction support services to support the construction of a splash pad at McCormick Village Park. On December 13th, 2022, pursuant to the city's procurement policies adopted as resolution number 036-22 as amended, the city's Public Works Department established a list of qualified contractors from the 2022 MRSC consultant roster for the main category, construction management, and subcategory, project management oversight. On December 16, 2022, the city's Public Works Department selected 3 qualified consultants from the roster. On January 3, 2023, after staff reviewed, scored, and ranked the qualifications of the 3 consultants selected from the roster, the city's Public Works Department identified the highest ranking firm as Consor North America, Inc. On January 4, 2023, the city received a defined scope of work, budget, and project timeline for the project from Consor in an amount not to exceed $57,475. Staff recommends adoption of resolution number 001-23 approving contract number C005-23 with Consor North America, Inc. for construction support and management services for the McCormick Village Park Splash Pad construction project in an amount not to exceed $57,475 and documenting the professional services procurement procedures.
Councilmember Lucarelli.
I move to adopt resolution number 001-23, thereby approving contract number C005-23 with Consor North America, Inc. for construction support and management services for the McCormick Village Park Splash Pad construction project in an amount not to exceed $57,475.
Second.
By Councilmember Lucarelli and a second by Councilmember Diener. I think it's important to note here, we're not building another splash pad. This is the retrofit for the recirculation system. And have we gotten Health's approval finally?
No, we're still waiting on final DOH approval, which we submitted prior to Christmas, so it should be any time.
So we've got plans we've submitted that need to be approved by Health. And once they're approved, there will be a subsequent change order for the additional modifications that you'll need to see also. So this is for construction management, and we believe there's going to be a change order associated with the additional modifications that Health required that they're in the process of reviewing and hopefully approving. So, Councilmember Diener.
So this is not a possibility of getting the cart ahead of the horse here?
Well, we're trying we want this project done for this summer.
Sure.
And so we're just teeing everything up. The contractor has the proposed changes, so he knows what they are. But so as soon as we get Health's approval, he'll get us his changes. This is just for the management of the project.
Right.
Right, this contract has no effect on DOH approval. We're going to need this regardless. They're just managing the contractor's work when we get to that point.
Sure, I guess, but just worst case scenario is they don't approve what we've submitted and
go back to the board and revise what they want to get to that point where we can actually perform construction.
So that still wouldn't affect this, and that's why we haven't brought you the change order yet. We know what we've submitted and the contractor's aware of it, but until we get the Health's approval, it's pointless. It would be pointless to bring that change order to you
We had a number before of what we thought it was gonna cost to retrofit it. Can you remind
It was
me what that
higher.
was?
600,000,
6 and some change.
I believe it was 675,000.
675,000 now, okay.
Yeah.
I think we abort the whole thing. I think it's crazy to spend. It's gonna be $1 million to retrofit a splash pad. I think there's other things we can do in our city to benefit people than to have a water feature. I don't know. I don't feel comfortable with it. I think it's crazy. And $57,000 for someone to manage it, it doesn't make sense to me.
And is there a similar project anywhere in the state that DOH has already approved that recycles water in this fashion?
Yeah, I believe Ruston has a recirculating unit. There's a couple across the street that do. The original design wasn't based on that. It was a flow-through system. So now we're deviating from that.
I believe the fountains in Bremerton are recycled water as well.
They are now. They weren't initially, yeah.
Well, they were recycled, but they weren't treated properly. They are now.
And it's a condition of, because the water is coming from Bremerton's source, it's a condition of our agreement with Bremerton. So if we don't do this, we have to turn it off.
Correct.
And this is coming from park impact fees, which can only be spent in our parks. It is probably by far, by a large margin, our most popular park amenity. So it is, but I agree with Councilmember Cacciardi, it's extremely expensive. So, Councilmember Rosepet?
So right now, we have a contract to retrofit, and we're looking at a contract for contract management, right?
Construction management.
Correct.
Yes.
Consort designed the modifications. Now they would be a part of engineering, RFI, which is request for information for the contractor.
Right, but then we have the construction costs, which we haven't done yet also. I'm afraid I'm with Sean on this one. I think that, I know it's segregated money in parks, but I'm at a point to fill it in and move to something else. I'd rather spend the money, pickleball courts or something else. I'm not sure what, but I think we're pouring good money after bad. No pun intended on a splash pad.
It is already designed and in health's
understand.
hands. But
Have to be redesigned by the time we get word back from the Department of Health.
we hope not.
No,
I
Councilmember
just
Diener?
was going to suggest that maybe we take this to work study. Talk
Why
about this
don't
a
we
bit more.
wait till we get all the information from health? And
I'm happy to do that as well.
Right, the original contract was already approved. It's just the change order hasn't been approved for the additional modifications.
we're going to discuss, this would like be an executive session because we have a contract in hand with a contractor.
Or voted down?
We would
Well, you could
likely have an
defer it to
executive
the
session.
work study.
Just,
I don't believe we'd be discussing this in work study.
Why not?
We have a contract awarded to someone to do this work.
But that's different than this.
Correct.
This particular motion is.
This, correct. Correct. So if we did, I'm looking to the attorney here. If we awarded this contract and we didn't move forward, would they be entitled to damages?
Yeah, I will not answer that in an open meeting. We could absolutely go into an executive session and discuss the,
Like to have a brief executive
Yes.
session? Probably do that. Okay.
If to me.
So Charlie, you want
Yep.
to cite the statute?
absolutely. So the council will enter into an executive session pursuant to RCW 423110 subpart 1, subpart I, to discuss the proposed legal risks of a proposed action when public discussion would potentially have adverse legal or financial consequences for the agency. The conversation will take
10 minutes.
10 minutes, with action to follow, since there remains the rest of your agenda.
recording stopped.